Hi, Kate.
Hi, Kim. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Hanging in there. I think we're supposed to have the weather open up this week, which is nice. And then just trying to get like a nice start to Monday. I've had like a couple of like busy weeks, and so I'm evening out this week. So I'm excited.
Oh,
How are
good for
you?
you. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. The weather's pretty nice here in North and South Carolina. Where are you, Kate?
I'm upstate New York, so you'll laugh at this, but warmer weather for us means that we're getting 60 on Wednesday. And
Oh,
yeah, well, it's sort of your average March, but we get excited about that. And so we've already planned a grill session.
oh, good for
So
you. Yeah. Well, I thought you were going to say 60 inches of snow. So that's weather. Oh, that's
it
great.
was
Yeah, that's
60
great.
degrees. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, normally we're getting close to like the 70s now, the mid 70s, well, the low 70s, which has been really great.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. How's business?
Business is going great. We closed on some small funding rounds last week, so I'm happy about
Great.
that. And so my focus primarily is on the class, the accelerator program, and of course, fundraising. So,
Okay.
and I'm trying to sort of stay focused on that right now, but it's going pretty good.
Great. I love it.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Hi, all.
Hello. Happy Monday.
Happy
Happy
Monday.
Monday.
And happy International Women's Day, everybody.
Oh, thanks,
Thank
Charles.
you.
It's amazing to be among so many amazing women. I can recognize that as a man, being in this space. It's a privilege. It's an honor.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thanks. And we appreciate your allyship today on International Women's Day because we need it today and this month and every day. So thank you.
Welcome.
Do we have Kene yet?
Does not look like it.
Okay. I will bop him over a text, see where he is. Okay. Done. How are everybody's Mondays starting out?
Very good.
Very good. Anything you want to share?
Just got off the phone trying to put together an event for International Women's Month that is going to be called the Latina Journey to Activism. And we're talking about Eva Longoria, Dolores Huerta, and Antonia Hernandez, who's an activist here in Los Angeles at the community big organization. So that was exciting.
Cool.
We get that done. Yes.
Yeah, it's
Anybody
always
else?
cool when you organize events. Oh yeah, sorry, you hear me?
Cut up.
Now we can.
Yeah, I'm having such bad Wi-Fi. It's crazy. So sorry if I come in and out. But I was just piggybacking off of what was shared. Was like, it's always great when you organize events and then people really want it, and then they're like push you to say, okay, I think I need to organize something else. So case in point, sorry for not being here Friday. I kicked off National School Social Work Week with around 247 people signed up with 180 unique attendees today. And it's just like really amazing that I'm coming here like, hey, I want to sell this tool to make your lives easier. And then they're coming back like, okay, but we want more stuff. And we especially it's around community, which is what the tool is supposed to help with. So I feel like this weekend was just thinking a lot about what does it mean to have people feel validated and special. Like I keep on coming back to this idea of people don't really care what you do until you care. They know that you care about them. I forget that quote. I'll always forget it. So that's what I've been on. And I feel good about this week. I feel good about the connections and supporting school social workers and all student support staff. So that's where I am.
Great.
I had two really inspiring things happen. I pitched the president of the WNBPA on a concept to kind of elevate their iconic status through art, and she loved it and reinforced, like, when you send it to the party we need to have review it, make sure you CC me and say we co-created it, which you just can't buy that kind of like support and validation of the actual, league you're trying to do business with. The president of that league is like, make sure you know that I'm behind it. And then another thing happened where Round 21 is going to present some artwork by Dwayne Wade that we are really privileged to have the rights to. And I'm going to try and do a fast authentication on the blockchain as a supportive asset for the people who invest in it. And that's going to go live at the end of March. And so those two things coming out of February, where I was, given this opportunity and won the NFLPA pitch, it just feels like the momentum's going in the right direction.
No, that's amazing.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So
Congratulations.
I love it. Anybody else?
I was just 5 minutes ago invited to pitch this evening for She Works pitch practice on Clubhouse. Last minute, we're going for it this evening at 8:00 Eastern Standard Time tonight.
Wow.
Oh yeah, that's really cool. And also, if anybody needs a Clubhouse invite, I have some too. So I don't know if everybody's on Clubhouse or not. It's so funny because I'm not on Clubhouse as much. Like I've got invited on Clubhouse like very early on, and I literally think I've opened the app maybe like 3 or 4 times, like ever. So I do have invites because I just never used it.
Yeah, Charles, I'm like you. I was invited like last year sometime, but I'm still trying to sort of navigate my way through what's going to be beneficial. I do enjoy listening to some of the conversations that take place. Some of the rooms I would dare not go into again after experiencing some of those rooms. But for the most part, I hear a lot of people talk about, oh, it's been great for me. It's, but I'm still trying to figure that out. So I'm with you.
Yeah, if you can. Oh, yeah. Melissa, go ahead.
I hopped in my first room last week just on an invite from my mentor from the Babson College Wind Growth Lab. She invited me to attend. So I got a taste of what it was like. And then 2 days later, Pepperlane invited me to co-facilitate a room, which was great because it's not me representing my business, but it's me representing myself. So it was a nice way to dip my toes in the water, and it was pretty straightforward. I get the appeal, so it was a good experience. And I have people who have followed up with me afterwards and are going to participate in the next retreat. So that was cool. Also, it's the Synapse Summit down in Florida this week, and so just an awesome lineup that I'm happy to be participating in as a observer, right? And then And then also I just started reading Tiffany Dufu, her book, Drop the Ball, right? And I am already in love with it within the first couple chapters. So I will brag on myself. I'm really good at picking good books. And I love when I do.
Share them away. We all love good books. Okay, Brandy, I think you're saying that you had a note from Kenny saying he's having tech issues.
Yes.
Okay.
So
But he should be joining soon, right?
yes, he'll be joining us soon. He just had to shut everything down and come back in.
Got it.
Okay. Good old tech.
I
For
know.
any parents out there, in terms of books, I just picked up this new book called Hunt and Gather from it just came out and I'm flying through it. It's very interesting. Yeah, I will recommend it to any parent out there because it's not your normal parenting book. It's actually the anti-normal parenting book advice book. So it's very good. On a personal note.
Yeah, I'm really interested.
Is that me or?
Parenting and how y'all do it, right? How do you form these great little human beings and biases on them? It's my Wi-Fi
Can
right
you all
now
hear me now?
today.
Yes, you're
My
good.
apologies. The computer went wonky, so I had to like get another computer, do some really fast IT work, get it to work.
No problem. You're here now.
Yeah,
so
Kenny, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, let me pull this up. Hopefully you all had a good weekend.
I think that's the going yes. How's that? How about you?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I played some football, watched some combat sports, did a little writing. Wasn't too bad.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. Let me go ahead and share my screen so we can pick up. All right, everyone can see that right now?
Yep.
All right, good. Round number 2. So again, I retitled it Principles for Effective Community Organizing because I took a look at some of your businesses and I thought that was a much more fitting title. Just filling you in on that, why we didn't call it an organizational leadership cave. So
okay.
Let's recap from Friday. So we covered 5 principles then. The importance of sales, making others feel important, asking for what you want, the importance of making it easy for other people to do what you like them to do, and the importance of creating stories over just bombarding people with data when you're trying to convince people of things. So principle number 6 for effective community organizing, the benefits of an unconventional approach. Now you want to allow your mind to wander outside the confines of standard thought. When you're trying to solve big problems, focus on incentives, the reasons why people do what they do, rather than worry about rules and regulations. That's how they solve problems that feel like they have no solution. And I'll actually give you a couple stories from the animal kingdom to illustrate this point. First, the plight of the American buffalo. Now, up until the 1800s, the American buffalo spanned the Western plains as far as the eye can see. However, after about 1850, the buffalo population began to dip. Why? Well, post-Civil War, there were a lot of settlers traveling from east to west. And as these wagon trains encountered these buffalo herds, they'd shoot them for food, for fur. Some just shot them for sport. The problem was so bad that by the 1890s, there were fewer than 100 buffalo left in America. And what the national government decided to do in the 1900s when they saw this problem was they actually hired nonprofit organizations to go out west to farm these animals back to health. And if you ever take a trip out to some of the Western national parks like Yosemite or Yellowstone in Wyoming, you can actually see the results of these efforts. Another animal story, tigers and elephants. Now, both of these animals are on the endangered species list, but they've actually had a dwindling problem with them over the last couple of decades because poachers will hunt the tigers not only for meat and their pelts, but in certain Asian communities, they're believed to have certain healing properties. So they're a very popular medicine ingredient in balms and other remedies. Elephants are hunted both for their meat and their hide and for their tusks, which are used for the ivory. Now, again, these animals are on the endangered species list, which means it's illegal to hunt them, but there's still poachers out there going hunting them because there's so much money to be made on the black market. And there have been some areas of the world that had success in stopping poaching, most of them in Africa. And what these African nations do is they give the people an incentive to protect these animals. If you have certain species on your land, you can open up your lands to tourism generating activities like safaris, and you now have a vested financial interest in the welfare of these animals. And what these folks do to protect the animals is they don't really use jails. What they do is anytime they catch a poacher on their lands, they simply beat them up and let them go. But before they let them go, they tell you, if we ever catch you here again, we'll kill you. And of course, death is a very strong incentive, so most of these guys never return. Now, what these two animal stories illustrate is the problem with what are called public goods. Public goods are something that we are all allowed to use, but no one's really allowed to own on their own outright. So people tend to use it to their own selfish advantage, these resources, and they might get depleted absent the proper overhead in taking care of them. And public goods aren't things like wild animals. They're often places we share in common, like parks and recreational areas. You know how often those get trashed if no one's keeping an eye out for them. And really, that's the biggest problem with a lot of public goods. People feel like what's everybody's, no one really cares about. So people only use it for their own selfish ends. Now, I'll actually give you a third animal story to help drive this point home. This one with a bit of a different outlook. Chicken. Now, we eat chicken by the ton in America, yet we never run out. Why is that? Again, it's about incentives. The folks that farm chicken make billions off the sale of chicken products every year. And we never need any laws saying how much chicken any one person can consume or how much chicken farmers have to produce. The problem gets solved on its own based on incentives. Really, that's the beauty of incentives. They solve problems much more efficiently than legislation ever could. So, like we did last time, I actually want to give you all an opportunity to participate in an activity. So this is what you all can do now. You're going to share a setback you've experienced. How might you have prevented it? Any different choices you might have made when it's all said and done? Any opportunities that arose from this setback? I'll give you all some time to work on that. Raised hand, I saw that. You can just call out, although you can still take a lot more time to work on it if you like.
Yeah, so just clearly, is this just has to do, or a setback is a setback no matter what realm it is?
Yeah, that's why I like to leave it open-ended. I don't like to confine your thinking on that.
I mean, I'll go if someone else doesn't want to go, and if you hear me clearly, because I think I might just have to call in because my Wi-Fi is not strong.
I can hear you.
Okay, I'll go. Okay. Yeah, so going back to your question, I feel like a lot of setback is going on around like the development or like going through this product pilot. And it's crazy because I keep on, it's like the developers that keep on pushing it back. And I'm just like, no, we're not gonna push back the pilot anymore. Like today's the day, they're gonna get their logins. We're just gonna have to set certain tasks that the users will have to do. And I feel like I'm doing it the way that when I'm looking forward, like we could always keep on pushing back. It could always be better. And so I don't know if that's going to cause tension between my team and I, but there's a point when it's just like, no, like this is unacceptable, because I hear where y'all coming from, but like, it's like, when would you be ready, if that makes sense to y'all? So that's the stuff I'm going through now. And the setback is we're 2 weeks behind schedule, 2 to 3 weeks. And some people might be like, oh, that's nothing, but it's absolutely something if I know that we're looking at trying to acquire customers by June, right? And a certain level of piloting has to get done. So that's where I'm at right now as it relates to feeling about stuff being a setback.
Oh, that's good. First off, nice to meet you, Natasha, because I didn't meet you last time. And yeah, it was a good story. Did you actually have a timeline through which this program was supposed to be rolled out?
Yep, and it's on the Trello board and all of that, the tech product. So it's tech usage, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can see how that might cause an issue. Anyone else?
I would just echo Natasha. We should have a conversation because I'm actually going through the same thing. I think one of the setbacks for me that I would do different, and I have to take full responsibility, is that I literally, when we set out to hire our dev team, I had gone through 6 discovery phases with different companies all over the country, offshore. And I allowed the company that we went with to actually come in and look at the designs, look at my prototype and say, we can do it with no problem. And we did not go through a thorough discovery phase because I was assuming because we were able to articulate our designs, and I trusted the project manager, but that was a huge, huge mistake. We should have gone through the 8th or 10th or 20th discovery phase, with this company. And so that was a setback because it also put us back behind our timeline as well. So we're actually running like 30 to 60 days. Well, actually 45 days behind time. So I feel your pain, Natasha, but yeah, that would be something that I would absolutely do different.
Wow.
I participate in a weekly coffee club chat that's virtual. It's been about a year now. And one day early in, I was asked, hey, you know how tomorrow morning we're meeting and we usually have a presenter? How would you like to be the next one to pitch? And I had never pitched before. So I also know my personality, that if somebody gives me an opportunity, I don't say no. So I scrape something together and in the morning I pitched, and the group recorded it. I didn't know that it was recorded, even though it was Zoom, just for anybody else who doesn't know that it's possible to record when it doesn't say record, right? And they also gave me that recording, but it wasn't just my pitch. It was my pitch and their commentary after I left the meeting for an additional half hour. So I listened to it, and it was spicy. Like it wasn't mild, and what I took away from it is one person, said, I don't even think she has a business, right? And that I could feel that in my gut when he said that. And then another person said, well, who knows? She might be the next Oprah, which I also didn't love, because I personally don't like being compared, right? Like, this is who you're supposed to be or who we think you are. And then the third piece to it was there was a woman who said, well, I don't know how much you all practice mindfulness, but I have a consistent practice, and I actually understand exactly what she's saying, and I'm planning on attending, her retreat. And so she came up like in my defense, but then she described exactly what I was saying in pretty much the same words. And they all said, oh, well, if she had said it that way, I would have understood. So that was my setback, right? Having this just like raw behind the scenes feedback without being present. And yet what I could have done differently would have been to, not pitch with 12 hours notice. That would have been one thing to do. And then what was the other aspect you wanted us to touch on, Kene? You said, what would you do differently?
You mentioned the what you would have done in the aftermath and any opportunities that arose from that.
Oh, for sure. I am highly competitive against myself. So that's when I started to apply to an accelerator and got in a couple of months later and went through the program. And here I am working on my pitch more. So it needed to happen. I'm grateful that it did, but it didn't happen the way that I thought that it would.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that anecdote. So these people, they gave you the feedback. Did they email that to you? Or how did they send that to you?
Oh yeah, it was just an email. Like, we recorded your thing. I don't think we told you that we were recording it, and
Wow.
At the end is our feedback for you.
And some guy just said, "Oh, I don't think she has a business." I don't know.
For sure. Yep. True story.
Wow. Thanks. Anyone
I
else?
will say though that part of what I do for myself that helps me get through moments like that is that whether or not it actually happens, in my mind, I'm telling myself that I'm writing a story, my how I got to where I'm going story. So when something like that happens, I just say to myself, well, they just got a chapter in my book. And then I keep it pushing.
Yeah, I actually do something similar. Like I write down notable events that happened in my life, positive or negative, and I just keep a rolling list of that. So if I ever want to go back and A, read it for self-esteem purposes, or B, if I ever want to write a memoir or anything, it comes in handy for that.
Yeah, I feel like how do you go backwards and say this is what I did for the past 10 years? It's going to be through rose-colored glasses, right?
Oh well, that's why I always try to write it in the moment. Like the day it happens is when I write. I've just been doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on the same page.
Yeah, that's good. Anyone else have any?
I can share a quick one if
Sure.
yeah. So I last fall I was looking for help with marketing, so I brought on a marketing contractor person that had a lot of experience with physical product marketing, and we were trying to market our product, which is a software product. And so from the kind of the very beginning, I had this like gut feeling that we just weren't going to work well together. But I kind of wanted to see it through because I'm just one of those people that like, I mean, it's to my fault that I just want to like, see situations through, kind of like see what happens. And so I kind of worked with him for like 2 months. And after those 2 months, did obviously like that gut feeling was right. Like we just didn't gel together. We had very different visions for where the product was going to go in the future. And so I think looking back on that, I kind of like, not that I wasted 2 months, but I spent 2 months like feeling stressed, frustrated working with this person and kind of thinking it was my fault. Like I was the problem. And I think to a certain extent, like looking back, I wish I could have made a decision quicker on, hey, we're not going to really work well together. Like, let's kind of just move on and I'll go find somebody who I work well better with. But we just had very like conflicting personalities and very conflicting ways of working as well. And so I think moving forward, like people that I do work with and work with me on the product, like I definitely want to be mindful of long term, is it somebody that I see us working for a long time together, or is it more so like one project, one off kind of thing? So yeah, that's kind of like what I wish I would have done differently looking back, but now I kind of thankfully have learned from that experience and can kind of pick up on those red flags moving forward. But it's still pretty difficult to pick that up really early on with people, right? Because it's virtual and you're kind of like, let's try this out. But I think opportunities that arose from that after he left, my sister works in marketing. So I was able to work with her for a few months, and we haven't worked together on anything before. So that was really awesome to get her help with marketing and just getting a marketing strategy down, which is where I needed the most support. So that's the opportunity that arose from me kind of stopping that work with that specific person.
Yeah. How did you decide on using that person in the first place?
I had looked at his like LinkedIn, we had a call, and he just seemed like very excited about the company and what we could do. I didn't do a good job of interviewing. Looking back, I should have definitely asked more questions. I should have understood, did he have experience with marketing digital products, or was it more so like e-commerce stuff, right? It's very different audiences, different platforms that you would use to get to those audiences. And just like his overall experience working in tech would have been helpful. I didn't ask those questions when we first met. So lots of things for sure I could have done differently, but had never, it was like my first time trying to hire somebody to work with me, and I was very excited and I needed the help. And so kind of didn't end up working out, but I think the learning lesson was definitely one that I can now carry on moving forward, which is good.
Oh, that's good. I think a lot of our painful experiences really drive home key lessons. So I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else want to share? All right. Let me share my screen again. All right. So some of you already actually discussed this without even thinking about it. Some of the lessons that we can use for really driving home this idea of being able to think unconventionally. So critical thinking can be developed, some of it through either paying attention to what's happening to other people around you, or just asking questions, because asking questions can get your mind moving in the right direction that it can help solve a lot of problems you may not even think about. You want to get rid of any preconceived notions about what's possible, which is key, because a lot of people, they already limit themselves on their solutions by thinking about, well, this person can do that, so I couldn't do this, etc. When you need to be allowing your mind to be completely free of any boundaries if you're trying to solve big time problems. And I can give you a couple examples of this. With the whole COVID thing, some people saw it as a really bad experience, but as you all probably experiencing, ironically, we're doing it now. The idea that you're not meeting in person has allowed people to be freed up in how they meet. You don't have to commute places. You save time if you have an office, save money if you have an office. Employees are happier, because one of the biggest things that keeps employees from changing companies or going to companies like, well, I live in Tennessee and I don't want to commute to an hour away from there. People don't want to deal with that. I got some of my own experiences too. One of them, I actually should have died back in 2018. Story's too long to share here, but what I'll do is I'll send you guys a link to that story and you can listen to it. I've actually shared it with a few audiences who wanted to hear the story. And a business example. So I mentioned on Friday, one of the businesses I have is manufacturing and importing certain commercial equipment. And I actually had an issue. I don't know how familiar any of you are with how eBay sales work, but if you are, you know that whenever there's a dispute between buyers and sellers, eBay is very slanted towards the buyer. They'll tend to take their word for it, even if you got a mountain of evidence on your side as a seller. So what happened a few years ago was I actually sold a mini donut machine. The total price is about $1,500. And this machine has a very specific electrical environment that it works in, which I lay out in the description. And what happened was a buyer, for whatever reason, thought they could use the machine in their home. It didn't work. And what they tried to say was the machine didn't work. I had a bunch of evidence, video evidence of me using the machine before sending to them, etc. I submitted this to eBay. eBay still didn't listen. So they ruled in the buyer's favor and initially going to give this guy $1,500 plus. And rather than just sit there and take that, I was like, you know what? I can actually pitch this story to some media companies and see what comes of it. So I actually reached out to one of the columnists at the New York Times, their business section, and I got him to run the story in one of the Sunday Times business section's front page. And through that, I got a lot of notoriety because the guy actually, I didn't even ask him to do this. He actually mentioned my book title. That's where having a controversial title comes into play. He's like, he mentioned that in there, and I got some good experiences from that. So unconventional thinking rules the roost. Principle number 7 for effective community organizing: 100% accountability. Now, this is a mindset more than is a particular strategy, and it's actually become a real problem in America today. When things go wrong, people look to blame someone else. It could be the government, President Trump, President Obama, racism, the economy, whatever it is. It's much easier to point the finger at some outside force rather than look in the mirror and say, I didn't do enough to get the job done. When you don't adopt a mindset of 100% accountability, you're much more likely to see failure happen because you see failure as something that's outside of your control. You're also less likely to affect change in your lives and the lives of people you care about because you see life as something that just happens to you rather than a cumulative result of choices you're making all along the way. And the sooner we adopt this mindset of 100% accountability, the better off we'll be. I'll give you a good exercise for instilling this mindset in yourself. Think about 3 of the last negative interactions we had with other people. Focus not on what they did wrong, but think about what you could have done to ensure a more positive outcome. Did you work hard enough? Did you ask for what you want? Did you communicate? We play a very large role in how our lives unfold, and the sooner we adopt this mindset of 100% accountability, the better. So I actually want to give you all an opportunity to do that with this next exercise. So list 3 negative interactions you had with other people. What went wrong, what lessons you learned, etc. I give you some time to work on that. Oh yeah, I appreciate that comment, Melissa. I love compliments, so not made of stone. Yeah, it could be business, social, anything. Sasha. Yeah. Yeah, no problem, Valerie. I'll actually, I'm going to shoot you all an email sometime this week, so find out ways I can help you. Take care.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Hi, Kenny. Can you share your screen again, please?
Yep.
Thank you.
I can start by sharing one. So this past week, I sent my COO a quote from a bookkeeper and all that she would offer moving forward. And I just asked for my COO to compare pricings of actually getting a certified person through QuickBooks instead of an independent person who has been certified through QuickBooks. And instead of doing that, she spent a good amount of time, looking into this person's background, finding things that I generally ask for other other vetting, right? So if I want somebody to be on my podcast, I do want to know, where they went to school, what they like, all of the above. But this was a very, in my mind, simple ask that was like concrete, just compare prices and get back to me. So it took longer than expected. And then the response was, this full assessment instead of just numbers. And so what I learned from that is, because I know my COO well, and I know that this is her style, that I need to make sure when I'm asking a very direct, what seems to be like a quick response needed question, that I need to find out for myself, is this the best use of her time if she does dive deep, or should I give a different task that she can use her strength, which is being very detail oriented and going above and beyond and bringing back data, and then just do the thing that I know I could do myself in 5-10 minutes tops.
Oh, that's good. That makes sense. Especially after you have a scenario like that, you and your COO can get even better paid. You can just find ways to always ensure she does exactly what you're thinking through that process you mentioned.
Yeah, I could do that as well. I mean, we've discussed using Trello and just having it be there, because I think that a visual reminder and then, getting it sent over to the got done pile could be useful, because then you can go and dig deeper if that's what brings you joy, which it clearly does. Yeah, we've discussed those other options too. It doesn't have to be black and white.
Okay. Sounds like something you might discuss over a piece of chocolate.
Absolutely. And a coach. I personally think that when you have somebody that close in your business, that it's good to do some professional, professional support around being a therapist myself, right? I think that it's good to have a business coach work with us. And that's something that we agreed upon when we got started, was to check in with a business coach quarterly. So we're coming up soon on that.
That makes sense. Good stuff. Anyone else want to share?
Hello. So this is from a little earlier in my career, but I used to do a lot of fundraising for nonprofits. And early on, I did not realize the art of the ask. I didn't understand that there's kind of like a strategy and a psychology to getting people to give money. And so I did not really collaborate with my team and started to just make asks, not realizing that when it comes to asks of a certain dollar amount, or people that are regularly giving to charity or investing, donating, whatever you want to call it, prefer to be asked by certain people or in a certain way. And so I remember a particular instance where I tried to approach somebody that I thought, I'm like, if I can get this ask, like this is going to be the turning point in my career, right? Only to completely offend the person because they already had kind of a strategy like they liked to be asked in. And so the learning from that is sometimes that when it comes to getting something out of a customer, or building a relationship, or getting somebody to take an action, you may not always be either the best person to do it, or you have to really look at that person and the strategy at which they like to be approached, and working within a collaboration or a team to make sure that that happens.
That's good. Did that experience color some of your work with the mental health thing you're doing now, Monica?
Yes and no. I think with asks, I kind of look at it a little different on the nonprofit side. But on the investor side, I think it has made me a little bit more strategic in terms of looking at companies or investors that are already interested in the mental health space. And so as to not build a strategy around getting money or asking people to come aboard that may not have already had a track record in this area, like looking to see what their pattern of donating is or investing is, as opposed to just assuming they're going to like something because I'm a great person with a great idea, right? in that sense, it has colored the way that I have approached asking people for money.
That's fair. And how do you have like a particular strategy you find works best when you're doing these asks?
For finding who to invest, or is that what you say?
Yeah, I guess for finding people to invest, or when you found the right person, how you go about asking them for a contribution.
Well, in the nonprofit space, I would say pretty similar to in this one. Usually, most companies have either some type of Excel sheet or document that kind of tracks notes. And so in nonprofit world, looking at other teammates' notes about like, oh, this person likes to eat at this restaurant, or this person only invests this dollar amount kind of thing. And then in this space, it's really similar, like looking at somebody's portfolio before even sending a request to get on their calendar, looking to see if they publicly announced any other investments that might be in alignment with my product. It's the same type of strategy, even though it's two different industries, I'd say.
Well said. And Melissa, you mentioned How to Win Friends. It's actually the inspiration for the subtitle of my book. I've got that book. It's a really good book from Carnegie. So I would suggest it if you are on the fence about that. Yeah. Anyone have anything else to share on this one?
Yeah, I have something that happened just about a week or 2 weeks ago. And it's my partner, and we had a meeting which she forgot about, and I had to remind her to get on. And then she was in her car and we were having a meeting, and we went through a whole schedule of availability for interviews that we had to do. And the next thing I know, the next day, she sends out a confirmation for an interview that is precisely on the date that I am not available and we had discussed. And so it kind of like, and so what I did was, I don't know if there's any other suggestions, but what I did was I just sent her an email and I just said, remember per our discussion, these were the dates. And then I actually put them on an email. But since she's like a partner, not really like an employee or a contractor, I just thought that we both should have the same amount of commitment to the meeting, and because then it's double work. So I was a little miffed. So anyone have any suggestions?
That's tough. Do you all have some sort of shared calendar?
Yes.
Oh.
But we didn't, it was a meeting, but it wasn't calendared yet. Because it was a meeting about calendaring the interviews.
Oh.
So, I mean, the way I solved it was I was just like, remember we had this conversation, and I specifically said those dates were not good for me. So you have to change the meeting.
Yeah, I feel like.
Yeah, continue, Natasha.
Yeah, I feel like it's just a quick, like it depends, right? This question of how do you insert humor, or how do you, and I don't want to say reprimand, or maybe it's more corrective actions. I don't feel it's something that you dive deep in as someone was being malicious, right? And it's easy, I don't know the relationship, and that's something that needs to be considered on a communication, but it really is sometimes like, hey, I really can't make that date. And as per this email, is there some other date we can make work, right? So I don't feel like this is a deep dive unless you feel like this is repetitious, right? And that's a different conversation. And you might need to get a coach for relationship building.
Well, yeah, that's why I was thinking about, hold on, I was thinking about that book because it has happened before. And I'm sure, it's happened on my part too with her, but all I did, you're right, it's not a deep dive, but because it has happened before, it was a little bit, I wasn't as light as like what you just described. I was a little bit like, remember that, instead of go, oh no, don't worry, but remember I'm not busy that day. So it was just the tone, and that was all.
It's fair. I can see why you might
Yeah,
be
you
more-
definitely have to pick. Yeah, you definitely have to pick. Can I piggyback off of her really quickly?
Sure, there's no rules here.
Yeah, just with the communication, I think to her point, it's just also I'm having negative experiences with communicating with this guy I'm dating, and he's into tech. And it's interesting because I try to diagnose, you could say, the communication style that he's bringing and I'm bringing. And then I realized that I don't know if anyone took their PMP or their PMP certified, or just, how you talk about develop, conduct, join, right? And I realized that with communication and negative experiences is that I'm not the type of person that antagonizes people, right? Like I actually will put in 2 or 3 more words in a sentence if I could also diminish or lighten maybe that sentence, right? Because I don't need this now, or, and I'm trying to figure out why does it irk me so much when people use terminology that I feel like this is really aggressive, how you're saying, this is and I guess it's like this expectation, like, this is how I talk when I expect you to do this. Join the meeting, right? Instead of like, hey, do you want to come to the meeting? and I feel like with the negative that you talked about, it's not negative per se, as we feel it. Like negative meaning as in it questions what I believe as it relates to communication styles and what's effective during different times, if that makes sense. So that's what I'm thinking about as we talk about different communication with either COO or people who are really busy or people who are working with you and joining this journey, right? Just because it's like we just really have to be careful and we have to question what is negative about it. Is it negative because it's pushing us to think, like basically said earlier, outside or something? So that's where I'm at with communication and try to figure out how to how to navigate these styles, but then get my point across without trying to be like a bitch or something. So I'd love to hear someone else.
How did you meet each other, Natasha?
Yes, Clubhouse.
Oh, okay. That iPhone thing. I'm an Android user, so I've been locked out, but yeah, I've heard of it.
Clubhouse, yep. I'll tell y'all how it goes. If he lasts through our accelerator, y'all will know.
Now you have to drop his handle so we can check him out for you.
TBD.
That's funny. It's actually funny you mentioned that. It's actually another project I'm working on now. Like the next book I'm going to write is on the 7 elements that create strong bonds between people. And there's actually going to be a section in there on how people find spouses that feel like they were made for each other. So problems like you just mentioned are just right up the alley of that thing. So I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, you're welcome. But I think the communication thing was so, I just think it's important to like really question what's negative, what's not, what's pushback, what's not. Like, and I'm still learning myself, y'all, because like I said earlier with my example earlier with the dev team, and it's on, and I can send you a screenshot. It's on Slack. I shared with him, no, like we cannot move this back because the schools have to set a certain time. It takes a week to get on some of the schools' calendars. Like it's not, so it's crazy. I'm working on it, so a lot to learn.
Wow. Okay. Anyone else? It's good. I like those examples. You all have some such sorts interesting anecdotes. I am a fan. We share my screen again. So mirror some of what we just talked about. The importance of really not passing the buck as a leader. Like if something goes wrong, the onus is on you to figure out exactly what you could have done to prevent it. You could ask yourself, what errors did I commit? What errors could I have prevented? Because a lot of times you can see these things from an eagle-eye view and you may not address them because you're worried about conflict or you just assume that everyone's on the same wavelength, and a lot of times they're not. So sometimes you just have to take the onus to try to take some of that responsibility out of their hands. So first you let them know what you need to be done. And then if they commit errors in how they do it, then you can address that. But really, open dialogue is nice. And when you don't speak up, when you can see these problems coming on, it's really on you. And because really, if you're the leader, you're the person who's going to bear the brunt of both any criticism that's going to come the organization's way or the praise. So you want to do what you can to ensure people are all on the right page. And that starts with holding yourself fully accountable, not deferring. So principle number 8 for effective community organizing. Good intentions do not trump results. And this is really related to a lot of the nonprofit discussions we're having here. Especially in nonprofits, a lot of folks think that because you're supporting a good cause, you should be held above reproach. It's just not true. Everyone's got to be accountable for what they do. It's not enough to talk a good game. You got to play one too, because every dollar you're giving to an ineffective organization is one you could have been giving to an effective organization. And money and time matter. People need to know that they can't just have carte blanche with resources. I'll give you a couple of stories to illustrate this point. First, American Red Cross. I don't know if you all remember this, but back in 2010, when they had the earthquake on Haitian shores, the Red Cross solicited tens of millions of dollars to text and television ad campaigns for those the relief efforts. Even more recently in Houston, I think it was 2017 when they had those storms in Texas, they solicited money for that, but because of the infrastructure in Haiti, it's a much more stark example. Anyhow, when the Red Cross took this money in, people are still asking questions today because given what they took in, they should have made a much larger impact. And that could be a combination of the corruption within the Haitian government and just the general bureaucracy that runs in a lot of these mega charities. It's important to ask the right questions. Another example, the Americans with Disabilities Act. Now, this was actually a group of laws that started in 1990, but for this one, in 1992, the American government passed a law saying that anyone who hired handicapped employees had to outfit the office to make it comfortable for them to work there. So it meant wheelchair ramps, elevators, etc. Now, it was a well-intended law. The problem is it ignored the incentives of perhaps the most important parties in these proceedings, which are the employers. You're now asking them to shell out tens of thousands of dollars to retrofit their offices to comply with this law, when they can simply do one thing to avoid spending all that money: not hiring handicapped employees. And what labor statisticians found was that after the law was passed, fewer handicapped employees were being hired. And really, that's the danger of relying too much on good intentions. People think it's enough to just mean to do well. They don't do enough due diligence, which often leads to negative unintended consequences that hurt the very people they intended to help. So it's always important to ask questions and do your research. And I'll give you all an opportunity to answer another question. And this one's all over the map here. 3 examples where results were sacrificed at the altar of good intentions. So people didn't really do enough legwork to ensure that the stated goal would get accomplished. It could be your example, someone else's example, it could be social, professional, whatever. So I'll give you all some time to work on that one. Can everyone else hear me? Okay, yeah. So it might be on your end, Natasha. Nice. Trust me, I know tech issues. They can be annoying. You can hear now? Okay, that's good. Figured I'd say something to help you with the testing process.
Oh yeah, I appreciate it. So there was a question that you set forth.
Oh yeah. All right, let me re-share the screen then so you can see it.
Yeah, sometimes I need like a bounce pass for my mind, and like that's why I keep on asking to see the question again because I forget.
No problem. I'm just here to assist.
So clarity around like results, sacrifice at the altar of good intention. That being said, I have a good intention to buy you a gift. And, you know, like my best friend, Nicoletta, her birthday's today. And I'm like, hey, what's your Cash App? Or, you know, because I just want to send her money for the gift. Because I just don't, I'm not going to go look for the gift. So that is my good intention. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And so does that tie to a result-ish? Like,
I think some
I know
examples where not doing enough due diligence ahead of time led to a problem that could have been resolved. So you meant to do well, but you didn't end up doing right by the person for whatever reason. I would say that's more of a line with the question there.
Can you give another example?
Ooh, let me think.
I can share what I had and then we can see if it works, if that's good for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so last year I started the Wusa challenge on my Instagram, and basically it's asking women to say how they Wusa, aka relax from Bad Boys, but how do you relax so that other people can see what's working well for you? Because especially in the retreats, we focus on string space, right? So it's good, people share, but I intentionally did not ask for them to, in order to enter for this drawing, to get a self-care product sent to them or a gift certificate for a product. I intentionally didn't ask for their emails because I find that annoying, right? So I think that that's like, I want there to not be barriers to just sharing what's working for you. And so looking back at that year of doing that, I realized that I had this missed opportunity where I could have been either asking them to, you know, tag two people, all the things that people on Instagram do that I just think is obnoxious, but it's for a business purpose. So anyways, what I've done now is I made sure that the people who I am purchasing the gift certificates from are people that I want to have business strategic relationships with. So there's one piece of intentionality there. And then the other piece that I'm remedying with is then doing like an Instagram live with that person to get more engagement. And then finally, I'm going to be doing a live panel event that will bring in all the people who have participated. So I'll be inviting them to give their emails to remedy it, to participate in a summit coming up this year. So does that answer the question?
Sure, that's good. Hopefully that helped Natasha as well. That's a good example. Especially for most of your businesses where having email contacts is useful, especially in today's day and age.
It's golden. It's what I need. Right.
I have an example. So it's kind of related to my line of work. So in these past couple of years of getting really comfortable in the mental health space and self-care and wellness space, I've become like inundated with all types of information around therapy and holistic health, and so much so that kind of living in a bubble makes it really interesting when I kind of travel outside of that bubble. And so I went into a speaking event where I naturally assumed everybody knew a lot of the same information that I did, or had a lot of the same information. And so I started speaking about like, yeah, we're all going to therapy and we're all going to get get healthy and we're going to be well, kind of thing. And didn't realize that for some people, some of the information that I was stating, even though I was so excited to be there and share, was a little triggering. On my part, I should have researched the audience more and the types of people that would be at the event more before showing up. I think one thing I learned is that sometimes you can have the intention to go in and save people or want to help them, but ultimately in some situations, they have to tell you or show you how they want to be helped. And in that, if you're in that position as the leader, it's your responsibility to find out how to meet them in that moment where they are.
That makes sense. It's key, especially if they in the mental health area. A lot of times you never know what you might say that might take someone to a not so great place. That's a good share. Thank you, Donna. Anyone else have an anecdote? All right, let me reshare my screen. So a little more on this point. The unwillingness for people to have difficult discussions and or think down the line, which we're actually going to talk about shortly, can lead to some of these problems where, whether we're talking about business and you didn't do some legwork that might have really solved the problem, even though you meant well, or relationship wise, if you're not willing to really vet the person before you meet him and get into an emotional interaction with them, that can be an issue. Anytime you really put some critical thinking to work ahead of schedule, not exactly when you need it, that's when good things happen. I'll give you a good example of this. So when Trump took office a few years back, even now, leading up to January when he left, there were a lot of people from Black and brown communities that were unwilling to meet him because his politics didn't line with theirs, things he say, he can be obnoxious, but still, that's something that always, I don't want to say surprised me, it galled me almost, because you're giving up an opportunity to meet a sitting president. You don't have to like the guy, but just getting in front of him can do so much good for a lot of the people that you say you care about. I couldn't understand why people would forego that opportunity. And even just to have him know your name and your contact info, that would be useful. That's where I thought a very publicized example of good intentions not being allowed to take center stage in decision making. That's where people really went wrong on that, to give up that opportunity. I just never got that. So principle number 9 for effective community organizing: think beyond stage 1. And this is a phrase that actually comes from a famous economist named Thomas Sowell. When he was in college, he had a professor that asked him a question. Sowell gave the answer to the question. And then the professor said, "Good, and then what?" Meaning, tell me what happens next. And Sowell was stumped. This is where the phrase think beyond stage 1 comes from. It's a reminder to think not only about the immediate ramifications of your decisions, but to consider what might happen 10, 20 years down the line because of those decisions. And a lot of people in communities are either unwilling or unable to do that. And it really leads to problems. That's actually a graphic. I don't know if any of you recognize it. That's from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Leatherhead is his name. It's one of the best arcade games of all time. That's me going off script. Anyhow, I give you some more examples of the dangers of not thinking long-term. This one's actually from New York City. Now, you don't have to be from New York to appreciate this one, but the whole rent control argument in New York. Now, there are some benefits to it. The people that get into rent controlled housing, are going to be able to afford more housing than they might have been able to afford anyway. And there's also a community benefit, a sense of goodwill from knowing, hey, we got people into housing they may not have been able to afford otherwise. And there's real value in that. Unfortunately, when you study the history of rent control in America, you find that in nearly every jurisdiction, 3 problems pop up. And that is the average cost of rent is going to go up in that market, the quantity of housing is going to go down, and the quality of housing is going to go down. Let's take those one by one. First, the average cost of rent. Now, if you're familiar with rent in New York City, you understand that in the most desirable areas like a Midtown or Upper West Side, it's almost impossible for people to find rent-controlled housing. There's usually a waiting list decades long for those units. So most people that enter the housing market in New York City are going to have to be competing for the same market rate housing. And as you know, with the laws of supply and demand, the more people that are demanding a thing, the higher price that thing will be, which is why rents in New York City are sky high. Even through COVID, they're still sky high. They're just less objectionable. And with rent control, you're also going to deal with a problem with the quantity of housing available. This one's about incentives. Landlords are making less money with rent control in effect, so there are going to be fewer people willing to rent out their houses and apartments. You're also going to have folks who could have zoned their land to residential use to use it for something else, because again, they're not making as much money with rent control in effect. And this leads to housing shortages and drives the price of the housing that is available up even further. Finally, with rent control, you're also going to deal with a problem with the quality of housing. Now, this one's about incentives as well. Landlords know no matter how little maintenance and upkeep they do on a rent controlled property, there's always going to be someone willing to rent it out because it's so cheap. So many of these landlords will do the bare minimum, if that, to keep the place up to code. Because they're not maintaining it as they should, this accelerates the natural deterioration of the housing area. Tenants see the landlord's not maintaining it, they stop doing what they can to maintain it, which accelerates deterioration even further until 20, 25 years after you first install a house rent control in an area. The housing area is a shell of what it used to be. What was once a decent place to live is now crime infested, drug ridden. People are afraid to step outside their doors at night. And this is how a lot of the slums and projects in America were created. People feel like there's not as much at stake from their end, so they don't do as much to maintain it, and it often leads to problems. So all this talk about rent control, quality of housing begs the question, how do we create quality, affordable housing within a community? Unfortunately, this is the wrong question to ask. What you have to ask is, what are you willing to give up to create quality, affordable housing? We don't live in a utopia. So to get something of value, you almost always have to give up something of value. And when you artificially reduce the price of rent, you're usually going to see a reduction in the quality and quantity of housing available. This is something that local politicians and other decision makers have to keep in mind when deciding on housing policy. And I actually give you folks a more relevant example for you to work on. So our next question. List 2 short and long-term benefits and potential hazards of each of these situations. 1, accepting partners and investors and giving up equity. 2, when you're trying to hire people to do work for you in some capacity, do you pay them salary or do you give them equity? And 3, what sort of marketing tact would you take, safe versus controversial? So you want to get 2 short-term and 2 long-term benefits and costs of each of those scenarios.
Can you put the slide back up, please?
Yep, I figured it might not have been up long enough. Let me do that.
Are people ready?
I wanted to give you all time to do that.
I am.
Oh.
Sure, you can share it, Donica and Natasha. Yeah, you can go ahead and share an example.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Whoever said I am, you could go.
Oh, okay.
Donica.
So in terms of number one, short-term benefits of doing that would be you get a team. Looks really important. Looks like you're kind of on your way. The long-term consequence or repercussion might be that you end up getting people that might be good for stage one, but that can't really help you scale the company effectively. And if that's the case, it could end up being poorly managed. And then by the time you do find the right team of people to come aboard, they would essentially have to double back and do some of the work that could have been done if you had just waited. Not to mention you kind of give up you could be giving up a portion of the company financially that you can't get back.
Truth.
Yeah, to piggyback off of what Adonica said, it's just this idea of, they say fast, slow sometimes. Like if you really have this product that you want to bring to market quickly as possible, you know, then you want the money, right?
Mhm.
That's a pro, like get the money, get the product out, and who cares if it's 1% of $1 billion market, right? But on the other hand, you know, there's this idea of ownership that, you know, sometimes we as people of color, women of color, we don't even have not the latitude, but we don't even have the ability sometimes, right? Like to really hold out to that, because you know that, hey, 5 mil is good, 1 mil is good. I don't know. So it's just just give or take. And even some of the psychological impacts, like people don't really talk about a lot, it does impact in that way too, right? Because, you know, we celebrate 3 million exit for women of color, or, you know, 4 or 5 billion. I think what's the highest, I gotta look at what the highest one is, but, you know, we weren't doing that before. So there's some impact as it relates to that.
Truth. What about
100%
paying?
agree.
Yeah, continue. You were saying?
No, I was going to say I would 100% agree with her, particularly on the psychological part, because I was raised by a single mom, and I wasn't raised with much. So somebody hand me a check for $1 million. I'm like, bet, bet, I got you. I can do whatever else by myself. You know, I'm building a rocket ship. I can totally do it with $50, right? So I do think that there's kind of this, and I don't know that it's just a Black woman thing, although I will say I see it more with my Black friends who are entrepreneurs, founders, CEOs, whatever. We're just in this habit of like, we can get it done because we've always had to, that kind of waiting for somebody to come along. You don't know if somebody's coming, but you know what you can do. You know what I mean? And so I do think it's a fine line to walk, and particularly with Black and brown founders, it's something that we have to be mindful of, that sometimes playing the long game is the much better approach, even if we're not used to it and it's incredibly uncomfortable.
Okay, this makes sense. Tandy, you're gonna share something? How you doing?
Hi, sorry, I've been having problems with my tech today, but I'm listening and I have been here.
Yeah, I saw
And
you.
some of these questions have been super hard for me to answer personally. I'm like, oh, wait.
No problem. Those are good questions. The ones that get you thinking. What about paying for equity? Anyone paying for equity? Paying for work versus equity for work? Anyone have any comments on that? Especially when you're first starting out, you may not have much money to pay out.
You know, I just pay. Like, I don't care if I have to bootstrap. I don't care if it's credit card, because everyone, I mean, this ideology of equity, and this is what's been instilled. I don't know why I got it or where I got it from, but equity is, I was about to curse, I was about to say ain't S-H-I-T, but that's what, you know, like it comes a dime a dozen, right? And I hear it, like I'm not gonna even try to have that conversation with folks like, hey, I'll give you, you know, equity in my company if you, because I'm like, I don't have time to go back and forth with an equity conversation or ownership conversation with y'all. Like, I need to do something. I need to get somewhere. I do understand the value of equity, of people who are on the journey together. They started the idea together, or, you know, you bring someone along and you really state that I have time and energy to have an equity conversation. But at this point in stage, I'm just independent contractor, or trust that I'm good for it. Like I just don't even have equity conversations at all. Like if you could ask me how many times I talked to someone about equity. It was probably once in 2014 when I tried to get this guy, Bob Seltzer, to help me with my specification requirements for the app. But I haven't had no conversation on equity since that year.
That makes sense. Good call. Belle looks like she wanted to say something.
Yeah, I actually haven't done the equity, you know, offering anyone equity for services. So I've just paid. But lately I am needing some technical advising. So I was thinking about offering my tech advisor equity for doing specific work. And that would be a consideration that I had, because I know this person, I know his background. I don't have to vet that person, and it might be a good fit because I can't afford him, but I can afford some equity.
That's fair. It's a good, something we should actually talk about. Let me share my screen. Let's talk more about that, Belle. Yeah, it's always a concern, especially when you don't have much money, about how you want to pay it out. If it's a good long-term partner, it might make sense, Belle, for them to take some small amount of equity, although you might be better off if you have access to a credit union or some other folks that could lend out some money, just paying them out, especially if it's not something that you're going to need some sort of recurring service from this tech guy. If it's just something he needs to solve once and it's one off, like you want to keep paying for that going forward. That's something you want to think about in your marketing equity standpoints, especially with marketing. Like a lot of people are afraid of doing something that might be construed as controversial or might piss people off. A lot of times it's how a lot of these small startups got big. They did something that really got attention and then they delivered. It's not just getting the attention, but what do you do when you get the attention? That's key. You always got to think about the trade-offs and costs long term. Like a recent example here, you know, the whole freeze out they had in Texas in February. They've got an unregulated market, and now there's a lot of talks about bringing in the national government to regulate pricing. Now, it seemed like a good solution because now you won't have to worry about, you know, someone getting an $800 bill one month because of something that went wrong. But now, if you bring in the national government to stabilize prices, you're also going to see a climb in prices because now they're there and they're setting the tone. And now you're going to forego a lot of that cost saving because you're worried about what was probably an aberrant condition where technology wasn't working. And now you got to decide whether or not you're going to make decisions based on that one off situation. You don't want to be doing that. So principle number 10 for effective community organizing. Embrace the fire. As we actually talked a little about this just now. There are going to be people who, for whatever reason, resent you because you represent a change from the status quo. You've got to be willing to stand behind an unpopular opinion if you truly believe it's correct. When other people are running from opportunities because they're afraid of being criticized, you develop productive responses to fear and take advantage of opportunities that other people are bringing your way. Most important, you want to remember that progress is more important than being politically correct. And a lot of people forget that lesson. You worry more about what other people think in the moment rather than just getting progress towards your important goals. And we'll actually recap some of what we discussed here. So effective leaders treat people well, understand what people want, and make it easy for others to do what they want them to do. Because we've actually come to the end of our seminar time. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank you for your comments and the time, and just Accelerator program for having me as part of this. I'm a fan of the work they're doing, some of the minority communities, so I'm always willing to help with that. And again, here's some of my information. Or you can find my book online. You can always reach out to me about that. My website. If you go to my website, just taptheglass.com, you go on the right side of the column, you can actually subscribe. And I usually send out articles maybe every other month or so on problems in social settings and behavior, business behavior as well. And I'm actually going to shoot you all a message sometime this week, see what you thought and other ways I can help you specifically, because I'm always about that. So anyone have any general questions on anything?
I have a comment. So I was thinking about like the long-term ramifications. I was trying to figure out one, and I think I kind of figured out a personal one. But it made me think about embracing the fire. And when I immediately graduated from my program in school, I was like, I want to do Peace Corps. Like that was my life goal. I'm like, I'm going to do Peace Corps. I want to do a service year. That's what I want to do. And like I did so much research. I went online. I watched documentaries to see if it was the right choice for me. And then I remember hearing like people say, you know, it's hard for people once they do it to like re-enter back into like civilian life or regular life. Mm-hmm. So then I said to myself, okay, well then fine, I'm gonna do AmeriCorps. I'm gonna do a year of service. I'm gonna still accomplish a goal of giving back to the community for like some time, a good chunk of my time. And you know, like I had like so many like negative like feedback from people who say like, oh, you're just graduating college. Well, why are you doing that, right? Why don't you go get a job? Why volunteer your time? Mm-hmm. And so I was like thinking about like long-term like ramifications. Like there's like that aspect of like doing service work where it's like, okay, that can like really potentially negatively impact you. If you do like Peace Corps, like it's good for you to do, right? But it could potentially negatively impact you. And so could like doing a year of service. But then I think about like, oh, okay, but also like I've helped a bunch of people, you know, like enter programs, a bunch of moms enter programs to help their kids learn how to read, which is like exciting. So it's like embracing the fire. I think like when I read that slide, it was like, oh, okay, like this is an example of like a long-term ramification because like I embraced that And it turned out like great for me, I think.
So you didn't end up going to Peace Corps or AmeriCorps?
No, I did AmeriCorps, but I didn't do
Okay.
Peace Corps because it was like 4 or 5 years, and I did a
Yep.
year. So.
Send you over to Afghanistan for some time.
Yeah.
That's a good example. Yeah, we can talk more about that at some point. Anyone have anything else to share?
Yeah, I was just going to say, just to piggyback off of her, the slide about embracing the fire, I think is particularly timely, at least for me. So I'm not as politically involved now as I used to be, but I remember the first couple of times I, kind of put myself out there to really discuss things that were incredibly important to me. On one hand, I'm like, okay, I'm taking a stand. And then didn't, not really thinking like, oh, I've got a lot of friends and family that are on my timeline. I really didn't think about what they were going to think per se, but the long-term ramifications were that certain relationships changed. I was invited to certain things, whereas other doors opened up, other relationships opened up. And so there was a certain level of discomfort that comes with being seen and being bold in whatever it is that you're going to be doing, whether it's politically speaking or technology or whatever, essentially doing something that's going to rock the boat. And there's a lot of, I think for me, there was a lot of anxiety. So it just took me a while to kind of get used to that. But the people that are in the leadership circle and in the winner circle are people who know how to manage that burn and let it push them forward. And it took me a while to figure that out, but it is absolutely 100% true. It just takes some getting used to, I'd say.
Wow, this is true. You got to get used to being willing to stomach certain gut punches you take from folks because you don't do something that they want you to do. And Tasha said something. She raised her hand, I think. That's what that emoticon meant.
No, it was a clap. And
okay.
I want to thank you for this. Yeah, sorry about the lagging for everyone, but I think to the point, and maybe it's another conversation that you talk about on that last slide, because I was like, yes, because this whole community building, and then when people see you trying to take quote unquote their community and you're just really filling in a gap, like this is the stage I'm going through right now. And so hopefully that will be developed out further, because I think we're in now an era of your community is going to inform the success of your business. Like I just think hands down, that's why everyone is so big on this community building stuff. I actually don't even know. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I'm here to listen. That's a good share from you, Tasha. Anyone else have something?
Yeah, we'll talk with this stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate that. Like I said, I'm a fan of the mission the Ally Accelerator is tackling. So anytime I can help folks with that, I give a thumbs up. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, you all going to hear from me. I'm going to have a message sent to you all to see how I can help you. So expect that sometime during the week.
Yeah, that's appreciated. And any way you could give us advice on how we go about engaging community in the 2021, 2022 era time, COVID, post-COVID would be cool.
Oh, that's good to hear. It's a new challenge, new horizon. Yeah, so once again, I want to thank you all for being here. I don't know if Charles wants to say something. It looks like it. Yeah.
Hey, I have to put myself off of mute. No, I was just gonna say, I've been kind of listening in here and there. So, now, I mean, it's been great. I think what you guys are tackling is amazing. So, so Kenny, thank you so much for doing this, man.
No problem. Happy to help.
Absolutely. So if you need anything from us, let us know. And I will say, if any of the founders in the cohort have like more questions, or like if they request you again at some point later on, like it's like, oh, we could do like a special session with Kenny.
Oh, nice. Kenny likes hearing that.
So, and I will let you guys know that I spoke to Kenny for like a while last time after we finished, And you know, he had great things to say about you guys, and two, he was like, he wanted to know if he can join one of the other seminars later on. And I told him, I said, it's normally just for the cohort, which is for women. You know, but
I'll be the minority.
But I told him that, you know, I mean, I'm sure it'll be okay for him to jump on, you know, one of them. So
yeah, I appreciate that, Charles. Kind words.
Yeah. What do you guys think about that? You guys okay with him jumping in on one of the sessions?
Yeah, look forward to seeing.
I see.
And hopefully more good insights. So.
Oh yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I might take him up on that. Don't be shocked. Be like, one of these squares isn't like the other.
All right. Well, hey man, they said it was all right, so you're more than welcome now.
Appreciate that.
Cool. Well, all right, Kenny. I mean, if anybody else doesn't have anything to say, then, you know, dude, thank you so much. Definitely appreciate you and your time. So yeah, man, come back.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Charles. I'll shoot him an email.
All right, sounds good, man. All right, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
I'll see you guys on Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time.
Okay.
And Adonica, I know it's like 8 in the morning for you.
Oh wow.
I've been up since 4, so 8's good.
Oh my gosh,
man.
it's really early. God bless.
Right. Well, all right, guys.
All right, I have a question. Are we gonna be having one-on-ones with Andrea for the product session? Or I think we had a product session with Andrea.
Is it for the office hours?
Yeah, the office hours.
Oh, because that was the office hours. Something happened with that, right? You guys weren't able to get in. Yeah, we're gonna reschedule that for you guys. I don't know. I have to get with Brandy to figure out exactly when. So yeah, I'll make sure that you guys know that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, cool.
Take care,
Bye,
Sandy.
guys. Have a good one.
Right.
Bye, Kenny.
Later.
All right, Kenny.
Yep. Be well, Charles. Always appreciate it. You got my text, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good. Just make sure the number works. All right.
I got it.
All
Cool.
right.
All right, dude.
You take care.
You too, man.
Bye.